Nothing kills your smartphone video more than a jittery shot. Step up your smartphone video game with the DJI OSMO Mobile Stabilizer. The rock-solid build quality is unmatched. It's my go-to stabilizer and the most popular on the market for a good reason. Check out the link in the video description to learn more, and don't forget about your free Amazon Prime trial.
Hey, what's up guys? Now we're going to jump in and take a look at whether you should be using the native iPhone video app or Filmic Pro to record your videos, and I'm going to walk you through some of the differences so you can make the decision yourself. First thing we want to look at, if you're unfamiliar with what Filmic Pro is, essentially it's a third-party app that you can download within the App Store. It's 10 or 11 bucks to get the features. Well worth the money, but what Filmic Pro does is it unlocks the power of your iPhone camera and makes it the equivalent of a DSLR, where you'll have more control over shutter speed, ISO, color temperature, and even resolution and frame rates that you're not going to get within the native app on your phone. But there are some instances where the native app makes sense. There are some where it doesn't. Let's go ahead and jump in and take a look. The first differences you're going to notice are the FPS settings, frames per second. So if you go into settings for the native app and scroll down, you can see for recording video on an iPhone 7 Plus, you're going to have anywhere from 720 at 30 frames per second all the way up to 4K at 30 frames per second. Contrasting that with what you have available in Filmic Pro, you're going to get far more FPS settings. So you have anywhere from 24 to 30. Now you didn't have these capabilities within the native app to shoot at 24, which is standard cinematic, to 25 and even 30. And if we go back here to the resolution and say turn it down to 1080p, you'll see, going back to the frame rates, we get all the way up to 120, and if you go to 720p, you also get 240 frames per second. And it's a huge feature within Filmic Pro that allows you to shoot better B-roll. So when you're moving along or kind of slowing down the footage, it is going to be a lot smoother shot, and you'd be amazed by the quality of the footage that you can get for B-roll just from your smartphone, and you can only do so within Filmic Pro. And the next feature to compare is going to be auto exposure lock, autofocus lock. When you hold down on anything, you're going to get the option to lock the autofocus and lock the auto exposure, and you can also change the exposure by sliding the slider a bit. Within Filmic Pro, you're going to have some more capabilities, and what you're going to have is full control over auto exposure and autofocus separately. So if there is something in the background that you want to focus on, but you want to expose your footage based upon what's in the foreground, you're only going to be able to do that within Filmic Pro, and it's a huge advantage that really does make the difference. It is one thing to consider within Filmic Pro that does give it a leg up on the native iPhone app. It really gives you some more variability or more optionality in the sort of footage you can shoot. And one other feature that you're going to have within Filmic Pro that's unavailable in the native app is, going into settings again, is control over the shutter. So you can see when we hold down this option here on the left hand side, you're going to see ISO settings and the shutter. Why that matters is to really get cinematic footage, your shutter is going to be double your frame rate. And when you're recording in 4K, say at 30 frames per second, your shutter will want to be set to 60. And you'll have to adjust your ISO and compose the shot to be able to do so. Within the native iPhone app, you're unable to have that sort of control over the scene. And image stabilization is also different between the two apps. Within the iPhone app, you're going to have what's called optical image stabilization. That's actually built into the phone. And if you look very closely, it's actually a floating lens within the camera that, as the camera moves around or jets back and forth, there's a slight lag or a softer movement of the lens, and actually floats within the phone. And what you're going to get within Filmic Pro, down in the bottom left-hand corner of the options menu, is digital image stabilization. What that's going to do, and let the software do the work versus the hardware. No matter what you're recording, there's no way to turn off optical image stabilization on the phone. So you're almost getting two layers of image stabilization, which in some cases it does work, but admittedly I've run into some scenarios where they fight with each other. Many times that's when there's some very quick motions, whether you're running or the camera's moving around quite a bit. But if there are scenes where the camera's somewhat steady or you're able to carry it handheld, That layering on the two does make sense. Really good for B-roll footage. That's where I found it's most useful because the camera is pretty steady and you can almost just move it across or pan up and down, and it's anchored to, say, the table when you're recording it, and really does make for a great shot. Perhaps one of my favorite features within Filmic Pro that gives you some capabilities beyond the native app is in resolution. You'll see there's another option down at the bottom, which is the bit rate. And this just amounts to the quality of the footage and the size of the file. And as you go Apple Standard, which is what you get standard within the app, you can go up to Filmic Quality and Filmic Extreme. In these scenarios, going to have a lot bigger file, but the quality of that footage is far beyond what you're going to get within the Apple Standard option, which you can use in Filmic. If it is something that you're doing more than just a basic video with your friends, or you want to shoot something that is more cinematic, I would certainly recommend at least Filmic Quality, Filmic Extreme to get the highest quality footage out of your phone. And the last thing that I've noticed is different between the two apps is actually the crop on videos. If you want to get the widest crop, the native camera app is actually going to work better for that. It's only a slight minimal difference, but when you are using Filmic Pro, it does crop down the scene just a little bit and it makes a minor difference. So if that matters to you, the native app is going to give you more visualization within the scene. Say if you're outside taking a panoramic shot of some mountains or a lake, you are going to get a wider shot, which you can't get within Filmic Pro. Like I mentioned, it is a very small difference, but one definitely to consider. So there you have it with some of the basics of the iPhone 7 Plus camera app and Filmic Pro. There's some FPS differences. You get control over shutter and auto exposure, also image stabilization, bitrate settings, and a slightly different crop. Now, ultimately, the question to you is, which should you be using for your footage? And for my footage, I actually switch between the two depending upon how quick I want to get a shot versus how much I want to compose that shot. So if it is something that I really just want to get a quick video, the native camera app is integrated perfectly within the iOS ecosystem. Just swipe up, get the camera, boom, you're ready to go. In the scenario where I want to shoot B-roll, or I want to compose a shot better, if I want to have control over auto exposure or autofocus and set up the scene that way, Filmic Pro is a no-brainer in those scenarios and well worth the $10 or $11 fee to download the app. I think you'll find that it's very useful, and the more that you use it, you get more familiar with it. And even beyond what we're recording this video, there are far more features that are going to make Filmic Pro stand out, be it control over the microphone and other color temperature settings and white balance and so forth. These may be very useful for you and can really amp up the quality of your smartphone game. So thanks for listening in, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Go ahead and subscribe if you are not already a follower. Would love you to come along in the journey of learning a little bit more about tech, how to shoot better videos, and whatever else I have on my mind for different ideas. Thanks for listening in, guys. We'll see you in the next one.